Yeah, so we are recording now, right now, and the first question would be, what do you think is the spiritual situation on Mother Earth right now?
Well, it's really interesting because we are in, many people have referred to it as like the Great Awakening. But the way I kind of look at it is that we are shifting out of a deep sleep. I really feel we're shifting out of a deep sleep, and we're not at the tipping point yet, but we began to awaken to this point of where the oceans are going to turn. A lot of people say it's a 3D to the 5D. We've had this like major, that's so weird. My printer all of a sudden just started to turn
Yeah,
itself.
you mentioned we're shifting from 3D to 5D, and all of a sudden the printer is doing weird
But my
noises.
printer's never done this before. It's starting to do stuff. This is
The
crazy.
universe is interconnected.
Wow. Wow. It's probably going to print something out on a piece of paper that just says, yes, you are correct. This is so crazy. Wow. That was so weird. We've had this like crazy influx of, a lot of people call them star seeds, empaths. They are, I want to say it started around kind of the 30s, and it's come up to now where we're at, where different waves of individuals have been born onto Earth that have come through with extrasensory abilities. They've come through with this kind of knowing that something's a little awry here. And I really want to say we're at this point now where so many of us are looking around and saying, this isn't really real. Like, this isn't what it really is. There's so much more beyond this. And we're here to kind of wake up the masses and say, hey, like this meat suit we're wearing isn't really what it is. Like, we are an astral soul, we are spirit, we are energy. And I think we're in this time of this great awakening where more and more people are waking up. But what comes with that at the same time is when the light floods onto the earth, the darkness has to be shown. And I think because there's been a lot of darkness and corrupt systems running the earth for a long time, the more the light comes down, the more the darkness is shown. So the interesting part of that, there's a lot of people saying, oh, we're living in the darkest times. And I say, we're not. We're just living in a time where we're now seeing it. We didn't see it before because we didn't have the social media. We didn't have a lot of this stuff that people could actually start to see what's going on. But the only reason why it looks like there's so much dark here is because there's so much light flooding the earth. And so all of these systems inevitably have to be shown and then crumbled, then brought down. So we're in the time of that shift between, I don't just want to say 3D to 5D, I want to say like going up to 60, 70, and waiting for my printer to jump in and work with me on that.
Confirm your statement, yes.
Yeah, yeah. But also in this time of really it's a great awakening we're going through.
So when you talk about we're going from 3D to 5D, what do you exactly mean?
So what I mean by that is like when you're a kid and, there's a lot of kids that do come in, like for me, because I'm born in a family of spiritualists and mediums, for me, when I was young, I was very aware of the spirit world. So I could see spirit children. Like I had, I always say there's something in the water in Scotland. Like it seems to be very, very amplified in Scotland, the spiritual realm. And it's very much something in my mother's bloodline. My grandmother was a wonderful medium. So we were always kind of had this awareness about there's more than just what we see.
Yes.
But when you are growing up in the kid's body and you're told, oh, they're invisible friends, they're not real, and you start getting told these things, that children then start to kind of suppress their gifts. They start to think, oh, well, they're not there. And things become very like just black and white. Like this is a table, that is a tree. It becomes very, I call it third dimensional. It's like
maybe also very secular, maybe.
Yes, what you see is the only thing that can be real.
What you see is reality, yeah.
Right. And so to me, that's a very naive and closed-minded way to look at the world, is it's just what you see. So I think that that's what I take from the 3D. That's just the way it is. And we're going into this time where we're moving through dimensions, we're jumping timelines. I just did a whole thing on one of my videos on the military releasing these documents on the Gateway experience, where they actually proved astral projection and teleportation. And they proved with their participants in the Monroe Institute that you can project your consciousness and your energy into the past, into the future. They talk about remote viewing, and we know the CIA had, the psychic spy program.
Yes.
So we're moving into this time where there is no it's no 3D. We are going beyond time and space now. and people are waking up to it.
So you're saying that consciousness can travel into the past and into the future. Did I get that right?
Yes, because it
Okay.
all exists at the same time.
It all exists at the same time. Okay.
It all exists. So say we're in a form of like The Matrix, which I always called The Matrix a documentary. I'm like, The Matrix was a documentary. They were giving us a wink and being like, guys, wake up. So if we're in this matrix or thinking of like a hologram, and we have taken this body, we're part of a higher power source. People call it God. Some people say God. It depends on what it is for everybody, but there's a higher power. There's a source that we come from. So we have projected into these, I call them meat suits, these bodies. And that's why what we create in our mind and what we send out into the universe, it becomes so. That's why so many teachers nowadays are saying visualizations and all of this stuff, it really works. But it only works based on one thing, because the universe only speaks one language, and that's energy. It doesn't matter what you say, it doesn't matter what you're doing, but if you are emitting a certain energy, that's what is becoming in the field. And it's scientifically proven that the universal field, the universal mind, does not know the difference if you're pretending or you really are. If you're emitting the same energy, that's exactly what's going to happen. That's why so many people get stuck in the cycles of, well, I've asked and I've asked and I've asked and it's not coming. And it's like, well, yes, because your energy is in asking. Your consciousness is in asking. You've not assumed the consciousness of it is done and living from that place. Therefore, it's not done. So the field that we are in is a projection of us.
Yes.
So if people come from that place, it's limitless. It's literally limitless on what you can create and how you can maneuver in this hologram, if you will, in this world that we have created by our minds. Every single thing around us was created by someone's consciousness, everything.
That's true, yes.
So therefore, if we can conceive it, it is. But it's that shift in consciousness.
If we can conceive it, we are intertwined and wholesome with the universe.
Yes, of course. Absolutely. And I think that the temperature we're at on the planet is people are now waking up to that. But there's a little key to this.
Okay.
That I find very interesting.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard the 100th monkey effect? Okay, the 100th monkey effect was a study. There was this thing that was done many years ago. And you can look this up. There was an island and it was off the coast of the Africas. It was an island. And one of the researchers on the island watched a monkey one day. Before the monkey ate her banana, she washed it in the water, in the river. She washed it and ate it. And he thought, oh, that's interesting. And all of a sudden he started to clock that all of the other monkeys on that island began to wash their bananas before they ate it. And he thought, what a strange thing. Where did that come from? And then he communicated with one of the other researchers, an entirely other country, and they started to say, our monkeys are doing the same. They're washing.
Well, now I'm a little...
So then all of the monkeys and all these other countries and other islands started doing the same thing. And they actually labeled this the 100th monkey effect, because the monkeys on that island created an energy around what they were doing, and that energy started to move. And these other monkeys picked up on that energy and started to do the same thing. So it's a form of, it's like telepathy. It's like but it's the energy of it that people suddenly start to do it. That means energy is speaking. People are picking up on the energy. So we talk about what's happening right now. We're in this massive spiritual uprise, but it's the energy that people are picking up on. So there's people going, I don't know why, I just felt called to go into the center. Or I just suddenly felt called into like quitting my job one day and thinking, no, I want to know more. People are picking up on the energy. It's like when the wave starts to rise, it's like more and more people are picking up on that energetic wave. It's the 100th monkey effect.
How do you think that this energy is transmitted through the universe, or let's say also the planet?
Well, energy typically is not something you can see.
Yes.
If you think about like a toaster, and if you're the toaster and the toaster is dead, right? Until you plug it in.
Yes.
And then energy, electricity moves into it and then it's alive, but you can't see it. It's just plugged in. And then you put the toast in it and you can cook the toast. and then you cut off the energy and then it's dead again. So it's not something, I mean, yes, you can measure it. A lot of people can measure energy. People can feel it, but I don't necessarily think it's something that we're like, okay, and there's the energy. We can see it.
No, of
It's
course not.
absolutely feel. It's a feel. It's a
Yeah,
feel.
you perceive it emotionally.
Yes,
But
exactly.
have they measured human frequencies being emitted before?
Yes, yes. And also, if you do, you know, when people, a lot of Reiki healers, a lot of different healers, when they rub their hands together and generate that heat, the minute you put your hands like this, you can actually feel it. So
Yeah.
that's the energy coming off of that.
Yeah.
You know, if you put it up to your face, you can actually feel the energy coming from the hand. That's why when a lot of people get hands-on healing in different forms, they say, I could feel the energy moving into my body. It's amazing when we think, if we can think of ourselves as superhuman, because we really are, we're superhuman, and that we literally are an infinite expression of source. So we are an infinite expression of the divine. We literally can do anything. We can heal anything. We can change anything. There is nothing that we cannot do. But the thing is, the people that have been governing us for a long time, they didn't want us to know that. They didn't want us to know that, because you don't want to train people that you're superhuman and go off, because you know there's a certain amount of control that they like to have over the masses. And then you've got the corrupt systems coming in with power and greed and money, which is fine. You got to have a duality in the universe, right? You need to have good and bad. You need to have light and dark. So it's there. It doesn't mean that we have to feed it or give attention to it. But if we come back into remembering who we are, we can outcreate anything.
Yeah, I think this is also right now very important, that we remember who we are, that we are pure consciousness, and that we rather work in cooperation together, and that we should not get divided by, let's say, simple ideologies, for example, which are very present right now. And I feel, yeah, there's a lot of turmoil going on trying to separate human beings. But the thing is, we are actually one. It's not like that we are different.
We're not. But also
We're in.
it's done deliberately, though. All of the distractions, all of the little stuff is done deliberately. It's done to separate us, because when you separate people, you can control them more.
Of
And, you
course.
know, the vibration, especially of fear and hate, you know, it's the lowest vibrations. But if you can implement that into society to keep them in fear of certain things and have them hating our fellow brothers and sisters for ridiculous things, you know, it's just a form of control. And it's been done since the dawn of time. But people need to start to wake up to realize, like, I'm not separate from you. I'm not separate from anybody. We're literally the same. And when we shed these bodies and we step out, we're all going back to that pure positive energy. We're going back to that light. It's like my cup, you know, if I go to the ocean and I scoop out the ocean and I've got my cup, that's me. And I scoop out a cup and that's you. Our cups might look different. Like my cup might be white and your cup is purple. Like our cups could look different, but what's inside is the same. And at the end of the day, once we're done with the cups, we get poured back into the ocean. So we all come back together again. But the beauty of this is knowing that the cup contains the same amount of power that the entire ocean has. It's not a little bit of the power, it's the same amount.
So you would say that the entirety of the universe resides within us. 100%. I see you're very convinced.
Absolutely. Well, I know it. I know it from my life. I also have a very prominent recollection of other lives that I've had. I know that other people that I've been married to in other lives, like very strong recall of that. And I know with every fiber of my being that I am eternal. I'm going to outlive all of this as everybody else is. Everything is temporary. Our problems are literally temporary. That's why people should not sweat the small stuff, because you're going to outlive all of it anyway. And if every single thing is energy, then everything is constantly moving. There's nothing that can stay. There's literally nothing around us that is just form. It's vibrating. Everything around us is vibrating. So everything is energy. So it's always moving. That's why when people get so stuck in their problems, I'm always like, you're never going to be here again. It's moving. It's never staying in the right place. You can't jump in the river and try and hold the river back. It's not possible. The river has to flow, you know?
Yeah, I think a big problem of people have a very predisposed imagination in their minds, how they want life to work, but reality is a little more divergent, let's say. And if that conflicts with the mind or the ego, there's going to be resistance.
Absolutely. Because if we really are looking at, if we're looking at the ego is something that's that part that wants to be right. And that's that part that also is unhealed. Because the ego has a lot to do with trauma. It has to do with triggers. So when someone or something comes along and someone's got unhealed trauma there, it doesn't matter who it is, they could trigger that. And that person's just going to respond from the ego. They're going to project their ego onto this person. And it's going to have nothing to do with that person.
As they're going to project their shadow. Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting because we talked a little prior to starting the session about trauma.
Yes.
And I did want to touch on that because
Sure.
trauma is very...
Yeah, what is trauma? I wanted to ask you that anyways.
Okay, so this is my take on trauma. When we take a body, when we come down and we take a body, we pass through that silver lining of spirit, of where we are, consciousness, the sea of consciousness, whatever you want to call it. And we pass through that silver lining and we take on this human body and we take the first breath and then we're trying to figure out, oh, these are arms and these are legs.
Yes.
Now, the humanness of us gets very attached to things because a lot of the times when we come down and we pass through that kind of silver lining, we forget where we come from. We forget who we are. We forget what the assignment was and that we chose to come here to have this kind of crazy adventure. So trauma is when you have an attachment to a person, an outcome, an experience, a thing. Trauma is about the attachment to it. Now, the only reason I can talk about this from my walk is because I had a daughter, a baby Isabella, who died 7 years ago. And so my daughter, through the experience of burying my own child, that was the first time I dealt with trauma to that degree. My father passed away 20 years ago, and that was a traumatic experience, but nothing like my own child.
Yeah,
And
I believe that.
For me being who I am, typically being a very positive person, I was always of the, I've been into law of attraction for a long time. And I was always about, well, you create your own reality and da 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 da. And then Isabella died and I went, screw all of that. None of that is true. Like, this is insane. Why would I ever choose my child to die? And then I went into the valley of death. And I went into, I was bedridden for weeks. I was suicidal for about 9 months. I could not get out of bed. I just couldn't believe she was in a coffin under the ground. It was just, it was too much for my entire psyche to even accept. And every day it was darkness. There was darkness every single day.
Yeah, sure.
And I felt like most of that time that I was drowning and nobody could see me. Nobody could hear me. I was literally sinking and I was just desperate for any kind of life jacket, anything. And I think the only thing that helped me during that time was, one, I had a basis, a foundation of spirituality, which I was lucky enough to have, that I already knew that I could communicate with people on the other side. So I knew death wasn't the end.
Okay.
And I think that was one of the only life jackets I could hold on to was, I know she's alive somewhere, and I hope to God that she will communicate with me. But there was also days where I was angry at God. I was yelling at, the blame and the anger that you go through with something like that is very high. And then also, I had a lot of people step up that I didn't expect to step up and support my husband and I at the time. People that just came out of the woodworks who suddenly started telling me they had a similar experience or something happened to them with a child. Things that I was like, I didn't even know this about these people. And they surprised us. And like they were the support. I also had a lot of people who I was very close to who could not handle it and they disappeared. They utterly disappeared. And in that world, we call that secondary losses. And the reason why they disappeared is because they had their own trauma that my trauma was triggering. So they couldn't stick around because they had not healed that part of themselves that could stick around.
Or maybe they were also not willing to heal it and to
Well, of course, many people are not willing. It's too hard. It's too hard to walk. It's hard to go through that.
Yes.
But there's no other, to me, there was no other option. I had to move into it. I had to go into the tunnel and I had to sit in the darkness. And I did. I sat in the darkness and I actually made video blogs about it and I posted it, crying, sobbing, saying,
Okay.
you know, this is like day 9 without her.
Oh, you started like 9 days after she passed away. You already recorded those videos.
I started, I think, like a week after she
Oh,
died.
that's pretty impressive. I mean,
Because
because
I didn't know what else to do. And
it's
I
one of
just,
the worst things that can happen in your life. So it's pretty
yeah.
impressive that you started recording those videos 7 days after that incident, and you also started uploading them right away.
Yeah, I uploaded it.
Wow.
The time I was doing Facebook, I don't really do Facebook anymore, but at the time
Yeah.
it was Facebook. And so I uploaded it and I just literally said on the video, I don't know even why I'm doing this, but I feel like if I don't, I will suffer in silence. And I'm scared of what might happen to me if I'm in silence by myself. So I'm going to talk about it in the hopes that someone will help me. And I got like thousands of people on Facebook. They started sending it to people. And then I started getting a lot of people saying, we've got you, you know, like, just keep going, Nathalie, just please know you're loved. I got the amount of outpouring and I said, okay, this will get me through a few more days. And then I would talk about it like a week later. I'd do another video and just say kind of what happened to me that week. And then I remember doing this post on, I was always very athletic and I've done triathlons and I've always loved sports. And for me, it's always balanced out with my spiritual side and my creative endeavors. It's been a nice channel, kind of self-expression for me. And I remember one day I was like, I'm going to try and go to the gym. And then the other part of my brain was like, are you crazy? You should just die. Like, your daughter's dead, die. Why would you care about working out? Who cares? So it's like this constant, it was like, you know, the story of the 2 wolves, just, you know, it's whichever one you feed the most. And I could hear them talking, literally, get up and go to the gym. You'll feel better. Why do you care? Your daughter's dead. And it was constant. And so I ignored both of them. And I got out of bed that day and I put on my gym clothes and I could still hear them talking, arguing. And I tied my trainers, I tied my laces, and I got in the car and I could still hear them. Your daughter's dead. What are you doing? There's no point in living. Keep driving, Nathalie, keep driving. So I just kept driving. And then I parked. I went upstairs to the gym and the gym is packed. You know, it's Los Angeles, so the gym is packed. Everyone's at the gym.
I mean, that's quite a situation, stepping into a packed gym where full of grief. I mean, that's quite something.
I was loaded. It was my first day. I go on the treadmill and I hit it. And, you know, it's LA. So, you know, everybody's recording themselves and it's like everyone's in the bubble. I call it the bubble.
Yes.
And here's me. I'm in the depths of hell and I'm literally just trying to breathe. And I get on the treadmill and I just start walking. And then slowly I get into a run. And as soon as I get into the run, I can feel the grief. I can feel it starting to rise in me. And I've always been a very outspoken person. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I'm very open. And I was like, well, I can run into the locker room and I can sit in a corner and sob, or I can keep running. So as I'm running on the treadmill, the grief comes up and I start wailing. I'm crying.
In the gym.
Wailing in the gym.
How did people react? Like,
people were like, I mean, disturbed. People were very disturbed. And a lot of people, I mean, even the girl next to me kind of took my hand. She said, are you okay? And I said, I can't right now. And I kept crying and I kept running. I didn't stop running. And I was
think this is pretty important, that you can also maybe expose your suppressed emotions in front of other people. And I think that's also a problem with shame, that many people just cannot go loose of suppressed shame because they do not want to. For example, let's say there's also a lot of shame within families, and many people are not seeking confrontation, because if they really spoke out their heart, they might cry and they don't want to appear to be weak in front of, for example, their family members. And that's why they never go on that quest to really fundamentally heal themselves.
Right. I mean, the thing that was important that day for me was that I ran into the grief. I was like, either I can let it take a hold of me or I can run into it. And after I probably sobbed and wailed for about 15 minutes, but then I kept running and afterwards it subsided and I finished. And then I think I ran for maybe 30 minutes that day. And then I got in the car and I drove home and I was in this state of absolute stillness, absolute peace. And it was the first time I was like, I won today. I won. The good wolf won, not the one that wants. No, the one that's like the shame, the grief. Here's the thing with that though, is that we have been taught in this world that crying is weak. We've been taught that, you can't air your dirty laundry. You need to keep everything inside. Like you can't, we've been actually being taught shame without them telling us it's called shame.
Yeah.
And people have begun to think, well, it's a sign of weakness. It is the absolute opposite. I feel like if you're willing to open yourselves up, to be authentic, to cry, you're allowing other people to do the same. You're giving permission to people who, like you said, have shut themselves down for so long and have been taught, well, I can't do that. I just got to muscle through it. You muscle through it, you are going to struggle your entire life. You're going to be in pain your entire life. We have emotions to feel them, and emotions is emotion, is energy in motion. The energy has to move. The only way it's going to move is if we let that out. If we keep it in there, it's going to create depression, apathy, substance abuse, toxic relationships, because it has to go somewhere. So us allowing the energy to move through, but also standing in my truth and standing in the authenticity of who I am, I couldn't give a damn what anybody thinks of me. I couldn't care less, because I also know what they think of me has nothing to do with me. It's to do with them and their own triggers and their own trauma.
It's a projection.
It's just a projection. So
Yes.
why would I care what someone else thinks of me? If I'm standing in my truth and I know I'm a good, loving, kind human being, and I open myself up in my authenticity, it's going to trigger a lot of people. There's a lot of people who are going to be like, I can't, which is fine. But I'm not going to take that on, because
I have an interesting story to tell. So I met a guy from America. He was actually in the first episode, and he told me, so he was also depressed for a while. He was not in his energy, and he also, when he decided to let go of all this ego-based, egoistical nonsense, let's say, and get into the essence of his conscious and real self. For example, he's still in Thailand. He's still residing in Thailand. He went into 7-Eleven in Thailand. And he said that there were a lot of people who were looking at him in a very provocative and displeasured way, because they felt that he was able to accept himself, but it triggered in them probably subconsciously the inability that they are not able to go into their pain and embrace their real core identity. And that made them probably pissed and jealous.
But we've also, it's programs. If you think about, your mind is this master computer, right? People have been writing our programs, our software, for a long time. We came into these bodies already pre-programmed with certain software. Like when you buy a computer, it comes with Google, and it comes with things in it. So we come in to these bodies already with software in us. But then the matrix, the outside world, begin to program us in a certain way. You go to school and they start to write things in. Well, this is the way it is, and this is the way it is. And you start to take on those programs. And at a certain point, you begin to realize that's a load of rubbish. That's an absolute load of rubbish. I remember, God bless my parents. My mom is amazing. My dad on the other side, but amazing. But my mom is English. She's from London. And my mom was very, oh, you don't talk about those things, or just get on with it. She was very much like, well, life's not supposed to be easy, And so I had a lot of these programs of just be nice, just be nice, just be nice. Don't piss people off. Don't ask people why they said that. Don't confront, just be nice. And what it was actually doing was it was programming me not to be authentically who I am, not to allow my own expression. And it wasn't actually until I went to America, until I moved to Los Angeles, that I started to be like, oh, it's actually okay to talk about my feelings. And it's okay to say, well, I feel sad today. It's okay to have emotions. I never felt like that growing up in the UK, in Scotland. Never felt like it was okay, because you just don't talk about your problems. You don't.
Yeah, I can also. Yeah, I
you're in
agree.
Germany. I'm sure it's very similar in Germany too.
Oh, people, are you wrong? People in Germany are so spiritual and they're so
Really?
interconnected.
That's
No,
good. Are you
I
joking?
feel no, they're not. Like they're the complete opposite.
Okay. I do see though where those programs come from. But a lot of the times what the teens and things are running into, the teens that take their lives, there's a lot of like teenage suicide, and there's a lot of people on antidepressants now, and there's a lot of this, is because they're not they're not allowed to have a safe space to just sit with their feelings and to know it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to say, I don't know. I don't know. And it's okay to say, I feel like crap and I don't know why. That's okay. You don't have to have all of the answers right now.
Yeah, true.
Life is about, it's a process. It's a journey. You can't feed a newborn baby a 3-course meal. There is a
Probably
process
not.
to everything. So it's like you can't have it all immediately. You have to sit in those moments, and it's okay to sit in the stillness and to sit in the darkness. I mean, for months, I had to sit in that darkness after Isabella's death. And you know what was interesting? I began to be okay sitting in the darkness. I was like, so this is actually okay. And as soon as I started to realize, for me, God exists in the darkness. Love actually exists in the darkness. And the darkness isn't scary. I can be in this darkness and not worry about driving my car off of Mulholland Drive and killing myself. I can, because that was a moment. I had a day where I called my husband and said, I'm about to drive off Mulholland Drive. And he goes, stop the car, stop the car. I mean, that was a real thing, that I got to the point where I could sit in it. And you know what was amazing about that? The minute I sat in it, and I cried and I talked about it and I was in all of my pain, I started to see what looked like stars. It was tiny little pins of light. And I was like, whoa. And those tiny little pins of light started to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's much like the darkness we experience at nighttime. You can't see the stars unless we have the darkness. And I started to learn there's beauty in the darkness. There's beauty in everything. And just because I perceived it to be dark doesn't mean it's actually dark. It means it's beautiful. And if I can start to see more of that, then maybe the light will start to come back to me. And that's exactly what happened. As soon as I started to say, this is so beautiful, and I can sit here in my pain and I can cry and I can know that I'm feeling this because I'm alive. And the more I felt like that, the more I started to get light. And the more I started to get light. And before you knew it, I was beginning to wake up much better. I had more ease in my heart. And then every day that went on, I started to feel lighter and lighter. And then I got to the point where I started to wake up and I was like, is that joy? Is that joy? It's like knocking on my door today. I started to suddenly feel like, oh my God, there's happiness coming back, but I had to be in it, just be, because we're human beings. We're not human doings, we're human beings. And when I sat in it, I realized everything is perfect. And if I leave the body now, it's perfect. And if I stay, it's perfect, because I chose it all. I chose it all because I wanted to have this expansion. I wanted to find love in everything. And I wanted to know that kind of pain so that then I could go on and start to help others and hold space for others. And when someone else is in that space, I can say, I know, because I was there. And it's okay.
Would you say that, so you described that process of grieving and just being with the grief, accepting it, not resisting to it and hiding from it? Would you say that, like those negative frequencies, grief, pain, jealousy, whatever, if you accept that, does that later on will turn into joy, happiness, peace? Or like by the fact that you experience that pain and you, let's say, see how painful life can be, you start worshipping the positive emotions, and by that you will find them? Or how do you psychologically, spiritually think that process really works? What do you think?
So for me, the first thing is acceptance. I could not accept for a long time that this had happened. I could not accept that Isabella was dead. I couldn't accept any of that because I didn't want to, because the pain was too deep. So it's denial. It was denial first. A lot of anger, because it's why me. The whole thing is why me.
Oh, sure.
I genuinely, at that time, I even said, I'm fine to die. Like, let my daughter live. I'm happy. I've had a great life. I'm happy to go. I mean, I've had heartbreaks and things like that, but nothing that nothing that I felt like I was going to take my life over. So after the denial and the anger, the constant waves of sadness, but the biggest thing was acceptance. And I knew I could hear it in my body. You're going to at some point, in order for me to really move through this tunnel, I have to accept it. I have to accept that this is my current state of reality. But I also want to break down the word current. Current is something that moves, right? So when you're at the sea, you say, what is the current today? What's the current? Current is something that's moving. So my current state of being, I was aware, was always moving. It never stood still. So it was always moving. And I thought, okay, I can move with the current, but I have to surrender. The thing was surrender. I have to throw the oars away. I got to stop going against, I got to surrender to this. And if I don't surrender, I'm never going to be able to move with my life. I'm never going to be able to move. Now, there's a difference here. There are people that choose to stay in that state. Yeah. There are people that choose, I'm going to say the word victim mentality, even though I hate to say that, but there are people that choose to stay in that state and they don't want to let go.
Certainly.
At some point you have to, and that is, it's the acceptance, but it's surrender. It's surrendering into all of it. Because when you surrender, you're allowing, and you have to allow the flow. Otherwise, what is the point of being here? There's no point to this then. Because if you're choosing to stay in the pain of it, the pain is going to be there, but it is a choice. And every day I was aware, like those two wolves, they were giving me a choice every day. And I was choosing which one to feed. Which one do I want to feed? And it was easy at the time to feed the one that was in my pain. And I had to, for that time, I had to. But every day I got up, I was aware, and I could hear them saying, you do have a choice. And even when I was going to the gym, stay in bed. It's easier. Cry. Your child
Nathalie, it's okay. You can stay in bed.
Yes. I was like, no, I knew in my state of being, like, I don't want to feed you. I don't want this. I don't want this. But I had to allow it first. I had to be in it first. And then I started to choose every day. And I remember I worked with a grief therapist after my child died. And I remember she said to me one day, write a list of things that make you happy, simple things. And first do a list of things that are free, that are absolutely free, that bring you joy. And then do a list of things that cost a little bit of money to do that bring you joy. And then do a list of things that cost money that bring you joy. And this can be anything from taking a walk at the beach, riding roller coasters at a theme park, or it could be, going on a vacation to Hawaii. So there's different levels of it. And I did that. The difference with me is every single time she told me to do something, I did it. I wanted the tools. So I started to write things that made me happy, brought me joy. And then every day I would look at that list, and that wolf is like, this is ridiculous. That list is ridiculous. Like, go back to bed. And I was like, no, I'm going to pick something from that list and I'm going to do it. And every time I did that, I was building my toolkit of what was healing me. And it worked. It worked. And it was very simple, but it was also climbing Mount Everest.
Was it?
Yes.
So
because I felt guilty about being happy. I felt for actually choosing it. Like I felt guilty for smiling. My daughter's around and I'm going to smile and joke and laugh. How dare I?
Yeah, when something traumatizing happens to us, that's like externally happening, that's not in our scope, we often, for no reason, start blaming ourselves.
Yes. Yes. And the guilt and the shame, the anger, the apathy, I don't look at them like they're negative vibrations. I don't. I look at them like they're a gift. They're a gift because I got to experience it.
Would you say they serve as...
We don't get in this body that we choose. When we leave these bodies, we're not going to feel that. So we get to have that feeling as a human. That's a gift.
Would you say they serve as a reminder for the positiveness in life, or would you classify that in a different way?
No, I don't think I don't think they do. I really feel, like I said, when I was in the darkness, that there's beauty in everything.
Okay.
There was beauty in me running on that treadmill that day and sobbing and running. There was beauty in that because I was just my authentic self. I wasn't hiding anything. I was raw. I was right there. And I didn't really care about, people were disturbed, but I didn't care because it was either that or death. It was that or death. And that was me choosing life in that moment with all of it that came with it, all of the rawness, what people would perceive as a darkness, the ugliness of it. It didn't matter.
So you would say you were able to see the beauty in it because you were able to accept all of those sets because they are an integrative part of ourselves.
Yes.
I understand. Okay.
Exactly. Because I was accepting everything that I was and all of my brokenness and all of my pain. I was accepting all of it. and I was allowing it to move through me.
Why do you think we or our consciousness is designed that way, that we can experience both those very high frequencies, but also those very low frequencies?
Because prior to us coming here, we chose to have the greatest adventure possible. We chose to have the greatest human experience we could. And because I'm aware and I've moved through past lives, if things have not been healed in past lives, we bring them back this life to work on them.
Okay.
So if we've had a relationship, say we've had a very traumatic thing happen to us as a child in this life, I can guarantee that the perpetrator or the person that it happened with, there was a relationship, a karmic relationship there in a past life that needed to be worked on, then the healing done this life. And if the healing isn't done this life, we will come back again and do it, because there has to be the checks and balances in the universe. And because our whole journey is about expanding the soul and getting to that state of love only, meaning transmuting everything, meaning forgiving everything. That's only when you can reach that state of enlightenment where you have no triggers, you have no projection of the ego. You can simply sit in a state, much like many great spiritual leaders have walked on this earth and said, I forgive them, and really forgive them, knowing that none of it has anything to do with you. No matter if someone's hurt you, it is getting into that place of forgiving them, and not for them, but for you.
Yeah, sure.
So I feel like all of that, the pain, all of it is in the catalog of what we get to choose before we come here. You know, we sit down with our guides and our elders and we go through the catalog and we say, I want that and I want that. And oh, my soul hasn't done that yet. And my soul hasn't done that. And oh, I've never had a daughter die yet. So let's do that because my soul wants that expansion. And then my daughter, who was my mother in a past life, and we flipped roles this time, said, let's do that and let's balance the karma scales out. Let's have that this time. And so we chose it. And we came down here and then we passed through that silver lining, and we didn't remember everything we chose because otherwise there's no point in being here. And so then we experience it all. And then we get in the car and we hit those trees really hard. And then we go, why would I ever choose this? And then at some point, we either accept, surrender, and start to get to the point where we say, I get it. Or we don't, which is fine too, until we leave the body and go back. And then we go, now I get it. I just didn't get it when I was there, but now I get it. But all of it, the pain, the horrors, it is a gift. There is beauty in all of it. And we did choose it for a reason. That's why you can never judge another person's journey, because you don't know why they chose that. You don't know what they went through in a past life that they had to choose.
Don't know where they came from.
You don't know. And
Yeah.
you don't know what their trauma was in other lives. Say they chose this life and they come back as a victim, and say they are murdered at 6 years old. And we go, that is a horror, that is tragic. And of course, but we don't know what they chose in another life that they said, I'll go in and I'll have that short life and I will sign up for that so I can help teach love. So I can help be the beacon or the catalyst for other people to bring more peace into the earth. There is such a divine structure to all of it. And we are such a part of it. And many times we get lowered into this 3D world and we forget. We forget there is a master tapestry and there are no rips, no tears, no threads out of place. And we are interwoven so divinely for other people's journeys, for our journey, for all of it. And that in itself is beautiful.
So you talked about forgiveness earlier. Why is it so difficult for people to forgive?
Because the ego wants to hold on to something to be right.
Yes.
And when you don't forgive, you are feeding that other wolf. And it's never about right or wrong, because there's really no such thing.
That's true. That's very true, yes.
But the forgiveness part is hard, because when someone's wronged us, we want them to suffer the same way we did.
Yes.
We want them to feel the same pain that we did,
Yeah.
because we feel justice is being served. But what we're doing
Well-
is we're actually sitting in a throne and playing God, because we're judging, right? We're judging them.
Yes.
And
yeah.
the ego loves to judge, and the ego loves to be right.
Of course, especially when you have a very nice fight with your spouse or something like that in the evening, and you come up, or not you, but people generally come up with the most interesting, creative, ludicrous arguments that are far off guard to be right.
You know, it's very, I have this great example that I've shared with several people. The way that trauma works and triggers work and the ego works is that, so say for instance, you and your wife are looking for a house, right? Say you're married, you're looking for a house, and you write down what you want with this house, and you're on the same path. You're like, this is perfect. This is what it's going to be like. And all of a sudden you walk around the corner and there's a house. The house is right in front of you. It's exactly what you said you wanted. And you go, it's perfect. It's everything we said we wanted. And something happened to your wife when she was 4 inside a house that had a blue door. And she doesn't remember it at all. It was so traumatic. She suppressed it so far down there that she herself doesn't even remember it. But this perfect house that you see has a blue door. She is going to have a trigger and she's going to say, I don't like it. I don't like it. And she's not going to know why she doesn't like it. She just doesn't like it.
If you ask her, darling, why? Leave me alone. You're being weird.
So you're going to say, what do you mean? It's amazing. This is what we said. And she goes, I don't know. I just don't like it. So she has a reaction. And then you have a reaction to her reaction. And then a whole fight happens. And then you break up. Now, here's the thing. Who was right? Both of you. She was standing in the truth of trigger. It was a trigger. And she didn't like the house because of that. But she doesn't know that. But you're standing in the truth of it's everything we said. It's the most ridiculous thing when people have a reaction like that and then they break up. That's all it is. It's a trauma response. And then relationships break down, marriages break down, but she doesn't really know because she's never gone into herself and connected. Oh my gosh, it was the blue door. And that was from that.
It's a denial to open Pandora's box.
Exactly. It's a pushing.
Because it's an unknown, it's subconscious, so it's not
right.
conscious in that particular form.
But if she was to say, why am I having this response? You're right. It's everything we said. I'm having this like just regurgitation to this house. Like I'm having this. If she actually looked at that, she could start to go into it and she could start to release it. But people, when they react from something, they're only ever reacting from a trigger. That's it. They're reacting from trauma that is stuck in there, either from this lifetime or from other lifetimes, and they're not releasing it. But you know what's crazy about that? Say 5 years later, she drives by that house one day and the new owners have painted the door white. She will drive by and have zero trigger, zero response. And she'll actually think, damn, he was right. That house was perfect, because it's no longer there because the door's changed. So there's a lot of things that are inside people that are very unconscious that people are not realizing, but they have these responses to. My only advice on that is that when someone reacts to you or when you have a reaction, don't react. Look instead and say, what is that about? Why am I having that? What is that about? Because it's a visceral reaction. Whoa. If you look at it, you will find out it has nothing to do with that person or that situation. It's to do with you. And the same for other people. Before attacking someone or before doing something to someone, look at yourself and think, why am I having this reaction?
Yes, and I think one of the reasons people are not getting into that, I mean, one apparent reason is they don't want to face the agony, but also they feel like as a response, as the agony gets a little more conscious and unsettled, let's say, they feel like they got to do something. It's like they got to move around. They get very hasty. And that's why they often decide to, well, it's probably the easiest decision and reaction to make, to yell at someone, to blame someone, to even beat someone, abuse someone, whatever.
Yeah. It's a dumping. You're dumping your trauma on someone. And I do not agree with that, because you're literally giving it to somebody else when it had nothing to do with them. So yes, people do that. These are just people who are still asleep, though. They're still asleep and they're in that deep, I said, the world has been in a deep sleep. These are people that still part of that sleep.
Do you also think there are people, let's say, who are very powerful and apparently hold a lot of money, who were very successful in separating us and getting us integrated into anxious systems that keep us small? Do you think they are also in that lack of spirituality, or what does it come from?
They know this better than anybody. They know this. That's why they're able to do this. They know, they understand consciousness. They understand vibrations. They understand frequency. They know. Yes. It doesn't mean they're operating from the love frequency
No, I don't think.
at all, but they know this. That's the only reason they're able to do it, is because they know.
And now the essential question, if they are aware of that, why don't they choose it? Why do they choose the antagonistic devilish part?
Because when someone gets a certain amount of power, or what they perceive as power, they get intoxicated by that feeling.
Most likely,
And
yes.
they get intoxicated by it and they want more of it.
Yes.
And that's literally all it is. And it's coming from their ego, because it's fueling them, it's feeding them. And they understand, wow, this feels amazing. I can control everybody and I can have everything.
Yeah.
And it's intoxicating and it's deadly too. It is deadly.
Oh, yeah. When I was thinking about that, when I was, let's say, thinking about those hierarchies, how they organized, and I was asking myself for the very, let's say, philosophical core reason, and I couldn't find any other reason that they're just addicted to power. But this is a very unsatisfying response, because they are so abstinent of love. And you ask yourself how, like, this is the only motive to be so abstinent of our potential and love, just to increase power. It's just a numbers game. So superficial.
But
I was
they also think of it like life force. They're feeding off of our life force. They feed off of us. It's like the cell phone. You know, when you plug it in, you got to charge it. You got to give it power again. And what they do is they act like this giant charger and they like pull the life force off of people. For us, if we literally just did what we wanted to do out of that place of love and said no to the rest, the entire corrupt system of the world would fall. It would just fall.
apparently,
It would
yes,
fall.
of course.
But people get into fear. People get into fear vibration, and people start to think, well, I'm not that powerful. Well, I don't really have that within me. And well, I can't change the world. And I'm like, it takes one stone to cause a ripple effect. One stone. You throw that stone in the pond and it creates how many ripples? And then it creates a little waterfall that goes over something else. And next thing you know, the fish are swimming again. It just takes one. It's the 100th monkey effect. It took one monkey.
True.
And the energy shifted.
I think when you're in misery and people are very desperate, let's say, and their mind is signaling them, you are so far away from joy and salvation, whatever that means. Let's take, for example, archetypical male, maybe nowadays, who in his 20s, let's say an incel, not successful with women, no monetary security, no competence, no acceptance from society. And they really think that they're so far away from the other side, from the bright side. But it's actually, as you said, and that really reminded me when you mentioned the ripple effect, that sometimes it's really you very, very close. I actually saw a picture on Instagram a couple of days ago, which is very much in harmony with what you said. Never give up, because sometimes you're way closer to the gem than you think. And there's a picture in which there's like a huge wall in between the person and the gem, and then there's like a tiny fraction, and that person has an X or something like that, and turns around even though the gems are so close. It's our minds telling us that we are not worthy and therefore we are not competent enough to achieve that state. And rather than, let's say, wasting that energy, we give up and stay in that anguished state of mind. And that's, even though you're still far away, maybe you are not, so just full speed, light of speed.
That's a program. So we've been programmed, remember? Like, people have written our programs for us. And so we have gone, think about us and like source or God or higher power, whatever you perceive it to be. In between is man, right? Men and women who have rewritten our programs to almost pull us away from this. So when we have these programs written into us, especially as children, I mean, there's a reason why they want to get you at 4 years old, 5 years old. There's a reason why the system wants you in at 4 or 5 years old. Get into school, get into nursery, get into kindergarten. We want them young because we want them with our programs. We want them writing like our programs. So they suppress at a very young age. Kids 4, 5, and 6, they're not taught about chakras. They're not taught about meditation. They're not taught about the pineal gland. They're not learning consciousness. They're not learning like angels' guides. They're not learning any of this. They're learning a tree, a dog, a pen. They don't want them to have these unbelievable gifts because it threatens those running the show. But if you're talking about if we're going into that state of consciousness, you were saying, like, say there's a young man, like someone who feels they don't have what society tells them to have. Keep in mind, that's all it is. They don't have money and a girlfriend and they don't have all of this. Well, there's really just one reason for that. First off, there's nothing on the outside that will ever, ever, ever give you happiness. It's just not possible. You can have a fake sense of happiness. You can have a boat and you can have a plane. But at the end of the night, are you going home and lying in bed by yourself and crying because you don't have love? You know, it's a false sense of happiness. But the only reason why that is not happening is because someone's state of consciousness is not in that place. Your exterior world is a reflection of your interior world. So, yes, there's things that go on out there that you can't control, but you can control how you respond to things. And you can control your state of consciousness. So if there's a 22-year-old man and he is not living the way that he would really like to be living, what he needs to do is go inside himself and start to shift his consciousness. It's not necessarily, well, why? Because if you keep pouring the why, you're going to get a lot more of that. You know, when you ask for something in the universe, you ask and then you have to shift the consciousness into the state of being. Otherwise, you're going to stay in the asking forever. It's like going on Amazon. You don't put in your basket 20 times. Well, maybe they didn't hear my order the first time. No, they heard your order. You've ordered it. Now you have to get in the place of surrender. And then, okay, and now it's done. Now it's done. But that's a shift in consciousness. And because our programs are, well, you can't, money doesn't grow on trees. We've had these programs of like, you can't be abundant. You can't be this. Everything is energy, everything, including money. So therefore, it's an energy flow. So it's shifting that consciousness into that state of receiving, of being in that state of it is done. It's hard for a lot of people, though, because of the programs that are running them. And you have to start rewriting new programs.
If you're lacking in the material world, it's a sign that you are lacking in the inside.
Absolutely. But there are a lot of people that have created amazing things for themselves.
Yeah, that's also true.
But they are coming from the state of consciousness of abundance. They never ever think that they're poor. That's why they're abundant. But does that mean inner peace and inner love and inner happiness? No, this is an entirely different thing we're talking about. There's someone that could be homeless and lie on the side of the road and be 100% content and at peace and in a state of bliss.
Yes, some people say that people, for example, Asia, so I mean, less financial force than Europe, but they say they might be happier than Europeans, for example.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, if I think of our journey, the soul's journey, I always think of love because love is and will always be the strongest force in the universe. And if we keep coming back to this place of love, like when someone does something that really causes us pain, and myself, I say, that's their trauma. That's their triggers. I'm not going to take it on because it's too much energy for me to take it on. I'm not going to take it on. That's them. And I'm just going to hold love for them. That's it. I'm not going to take on their energy. I'm going to hold that place of love.
What is love?
Love is forgiveness, first and foremost. And love is, our heart chakra is a chakra for a reason. It is keeping the heart open. Because when people go through pain or trauma or hurt or heartbreak, the first thing they do is they shut the heart, close the heart. You have to keep the heart open. If you keep the heart open, because at the end of the day, no one can actually hurt you. I know that sounds crazy, and I know a lot of people are going to be like, what? But no one can hurt you because you're forever. You can't kill energy. You can't kill you. You could kill the physical body. That's fine. But then you're going to emerge and you're going to go on and you'll take on another body at some point. But you can't kill you. And if that's the worst that can happen, then no one has any power over you.
So you would say love is kind of the ability to receive.
Love is the ability to see others without judgment, without hate, without anger, without jealousy. And it's seeing others instead of through your pain body, but seeing them as a gift to you.
That's a pretty good description of love.
And it makes the path easier. It makes the path easier. It doesn't mean things are not going to come up in your life that are going to be challenging. Of course, the minute we're done and we've learned everything, we are not here anymore. We leave the body. We're done. We don't need the body anymore. We're like, I've learned everything I can to this point, and then we leave the body. So there's always going to be challenges.
What happens to consciousness after we die? What do you think? Where does it go? Back to space?
From my experience, I can only answer for myself, my perspective and what I know. I call it we go home. We go home. We go to the place we came from in the beginning. We go home. Whatever you want to call that. Paradise, heaven, the spirit world, but we go home. and we see our loved ones. We see, I call them the elders that are there helping us and guiding us every day, because we're not here alone, not at all. Again, reality is not what we think we see through the human eyes. So we go back to paradise, and over there is the most love you'll ever feel, unconditional, unconditional. There are schools of learning over there. You continue learning. There's rehabilitation places that if you had come here and done not so great things in your life, you will go back and you will work through that. You are loved unconditionally and you expand. And at some point, if you decide you want to take a body and come back and do it again, and people typically come back in pods. So you'll pick a lot of the same people, but just take on different roles so you can learn from them. And I call them soul contracts. Your soul makes a contract with someone like, hey, we'll go in and we'll do this and we'll have this experience. And we do have the gift of free will. So at any time we can end a contract, we can end an agreement. But it is every time we come in, it is to get to that point of expanding into higher states of consciousness, and the highest state being love. That's what we're here. We're here to love. And also to remember who we are.
Do you think that love is equal to happiness?
I think love trumps happiness. I think love is above happiness. Love is peace. It is bliss. Love is everything, is everything. But there's also love in pain. There's love in all of it. I mean, how many times, do you go to a funeral and there's people in pain, but there's so much love there. Love is in everything, everything. You think about, we're doing a film festival this year. I have a television network, a spiritual television network, the Higher Realm TV, and we're doing our first film festival this year. And we had a submission of this woman who, her son was an army vet, and he was married with 2 kids, and he went to war 3 times, and he was so traumatized by what he had to do at war.
Yeah.
He was told no survivors. I mean, he was taught to kill families, children. I mean, this is America. And he was so traumatized. He came back and he instantly went into drugs, substance abuse. He could not get over, he couldn't fathom what we were doing. He ended up getting in a car one night drunk, and he got in an accident and he killed 2 people in another car. And he goes to jail. And this is a man that served for America. And he's in jail a week and he kills himself. He hangs himself. And he's young, in his 20s. And in the courtroom, he's on trial for the murder of these 2 people, and his mother's in the courtroom. Now, the mothers of the 2 boys that were killed in the other vehicle are also in the courtroom. And those mothers, when they were announcing the verdict, the mothers of the 2 sons that had died went over to the mother of the guy that had killed them, and they were hugging her, all crying together.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Because they felt the pain of her with her son, but she felt the pain of them, that her son had killed these 2 people, not meaning to. And she said, he did not want me to be alone when I heard the verdict of my son.
That's beautiful. I mean, yeah. So usually people would separate from each other, but what they did is they unified, because
they would blame and they would hate and they would, but those mothers came together as mothers in pain and chose love.
Are they still in touch today?
Yes, they're still in touch. Yes. I mean, but her son didn't last he lasted a week and then he took his life. Yes. But she said the love in amongst the pain and just the love of knowing this mother is dealing with her son who killed our sons, but we're going to love her anyway. We're going to choose love. My goodness, the power of that.
Yeah, if everyone did that, there were no wars, were no bigotry, no nothing.
We would restore peace on earth.
But do you think, like, how humans are polled, let's say, do you think it's holistically possible that we get into, let's say, eternal realm of love on Earth? I mean, not in space, like in the physical world.
I feel it is possible here. It is possible here. But again, a lot of people are still unconscious. A lot of people are still running from the ego and from their trauma. And hopefully they will catch up, and maybe they won't. Again, it's not our job to wake up anybody. It's not our job to heal anybody. All we can do is work on ourselves and hope that we can be a beacon of light or a catalyst for someone else to say.
Yeah, that's why I'm doing that podcast. And if people want to get inspired and they want to jump on, sure. If they want to insult me in the comments.
I mean, Vincent, if you touch one person, you're part of the ripple effect. You're part of the ripple effect. If you touch one person and they touch one person, and that person touches two people or three people. There is a divine master blueprint to all of it. And if we
Yeah.
step every day in love, like something like this, it's going to affect someone.
Yeah, and the thing is also, if I look at myself and I'm, let's say, introspecting inside myself, I'm also asking myself, okay, what is the purpose here on earth, purpose for me, and what is the highest good humankind can achieve? And even though maybe not everyone can be part of that journey, but what I mapped out for my blueprint was kind of like, for me, the motivation to go through my life, let's say, keep me also my physical body alive, is to, that's why I'm also doing that podcast, is to find connections with people who also want to walk that path of love, truth, connection, which is by the end of the day, the embracement of the ultimate potential.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And we cannot have any judgment on anybody because people suffer because people have false expectations and we have attachments. We cannot expect anything from anybody. Zero. Because we're not expecting from them, we're expecting from us. Well, that's what I would do. So I expect them to do the same as me. We can't do that. We will cause so much self-suffering. You cannot put any expectations on anybody. You can only hold them in a space of love. That's it. And no one else is here to heal you. No one is here to live their life for you. No one. Not your parent, not your spouse, not your child. You have no control over anybody's life. And no one is here just for your happiness. Everybody's here for their own soul's expression. That is it. So if we can hold ourselves in that place of love for everybody and forgive them and continue to move in that space, we will have an easier path. Because the minute we put expectations on people or we want them to do things the way we want them to do it and they don't, we're going to create self-suffering. We're going to create self-suffering. We're going to be mad at them and angry. How dare you? How dare? Well, no, you can't do that. Because nothing anybody ever does on the planet is ever about us.
Yeah,
Nothing
what will
anybody
cause
does is about you.
friction with ourselves and then friction with other people.
It's discord. I call it discord. I'm like, you've discorded, you've disconnected from who you are. You've stepped away from your alignment and you've actually put your happiness on someone else. They're not responsible for your happiness. No one is. No one is.
Do you think this is when people, because I mean, there are also a lot of people who, let's say, talk about religion, God. Do you think this is kind of like an analog to when people get into hell?
When they get into hell, yes. I believe heaven and hell is an inside job. And you can create heaven on earth or you can create hell on earth. Absolutely. And it's all to do with the self. The best thing I can do for anybody in my life is work on me. And the best thing anybody in their lives can do is work on themselves.
Yep, that is
Because you
very
can't
true.
fix anybody. And if you think about yourself, you're walking this life, everything that's happened to you, your DNA, all of your memories, everything. There is no one like you on earth. You are the only one in existence, right? Shared consciousness with everything in the field, of course. But you are so unique and so special and so divine. You have your own perspective and your own perception from your walk in your body. No one has been in your body. No one will ever see things the same as you do. It's not possible. They might see it similar, but they're never going to see it because you're the only one. But it's the same for everybody. So when people start arguing about disagreements, it's like, you people are so ridiculous. No one's ever going to see, no two people can ever see exactly the same thing. It's simply not possible.
You're
That's the beauty
fundamentally
of
distinct,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. You're going to see from your walk of life, your perspective based on everything you've gone through in this life and all of your lives. And that's what's beautiful about you. And someone else is going to have their own perspective. Can't we love each other? Can't we see how beautiful everything is? Do we want an entire world of the same flower? Oh my gosh, of course not. How boring would the gardens be? We had one flower. We want every color, every kind, every height, every scent. We want all of it. It makes up the beauty of the world. No two people should ever see everything the same. Of course not. If we only had apple pie as a dessert on planet Earth, dessert would be very boring.
Yeah, there would be no special bliss to
We
life.
want it all. We want every color, every kind, every creed, every race, every accent, we want all of it. It is so the gift of everything we have on this earth and the gift of every single person being utterly unique in their makeup is so special. It's so special.
So we
If more
want,
people would just see that, the world would be so peaceful and we'd live in so much more love.
Do you think, and that's what I also asked myself, because there's always that, let's say, optimal blueprint in probably many people's minds, including myself, that a holistically happy, intertwined, interconnected spiritual world would be a great world. Do you think there have been times in the past, if there's such a thing as past, where the world was in such a place or close to that?
I think that there is other timelines and other dimensions where they live in a higher state of peace. Yes. I don't think it is without conflict, because I do believe that the universe that we have, the reason why we take a body in the first place is to learn. So I do feel there's always been a sense of conflict, or there's things that have come up and they've been challenging. But I do believe we have before, and still do in other places, live in a higher state of peace. Yes. I don't think complete peace. I think things still arise, but we have lived in a higher state of peace and bliss. Yes.
Do you have any idea when that was and how that existence looked like?
I think like a really, really, really long time ago. I think back when the pyramids were getting built in Giza. I think back when we had many ancient civilizations. I think back in the days of Atlantis, back in the days of these, really, I'm talking like thousands of years ago. I do think that there was that higher state. There was definitely a higher state of consciousness. Like we have, even though we're evolving, we've de-evolved a lot from what we've come from. I was just inside underneath. I was 100 meters underneath the Great Pyramid of Giza 3 months ago. And I'm very aware that there's no human that walked the earth built these structures. It's just simply not possible. So we were very evolved a long time ago. And we've actually, by deliberation, they have pulled us all the way back. I mean, you probably don't know this, and your viewers might not know this, but they had cell phones already in 1954. They had our cell phones in 1954.
What?
Proven. They did not want to tell us about it. They did not release it. 1954, they had a cell phone.
Okay, who do you think exactly was in possession of the cell phones? CIA, some intelligence services, or how can I imagine that?
I don't know if I could say it publicly, but I found this out proven when I was in Egypt. So there's things that, so they've already know advanced technology, they know time travel, they know all of this. They've known it for a long time, and they've been utilizing it for a long time, but they don't want to tell the public. We came from free energy. We came from all of that. We already had it. We had moving pathways, moving walkways, and then they got rid of it. They got rid of all of it to make us think that we're in this brick and mortar, again, that's black, that's white, that's the rain, that's the ground. All of this was already in existence, but they wanted to get rid of it so that we wouldn't know. And those at the top, in essence, kind of hijacked it. And so they've been utilizing it for a long time. I mean, there's a thing called the looking glass. I don't know if you've ever heard of the looking glass, and the CIA have been using it for a long time. And the looking glass is something they use for time travel. And so they've been moving back and forth through the looking glass. So they've been going into other timelines, bringing things back, and then suddenly be like, oh, hey, we have a cell phone. There's a lot of stuff going on that humans are not aware of that have been around for a very, very long time. So we came from a higher state. We came from a world where there was higher intelligence, and then we de-evolved. And then many of us have come back and said, wait a minute, I remember some of this. Wait a minute, I feel like this isn't quite right. There's so much more. And now we're in a state of discovery again, and really not by those at the top, but by our own souls that are leading us to things. I mean, think of the people that get drawn together. Think of just even you and I. Like 2 years ago, we weren't aware that we were going to have a conversation.
No, 2 years ago, 2 years ago, I had different problems, I would say.
Right, that's what I'm saying. But our souls every day they stumble on things that it is so divine. It's so crazy.
What I was thinking is it's very interesting because so usually when I look for guests for my podcast, I don't check the profiles out for too long. Let's say I'm pretty lazy and I don't want to check the profile out for 30, 60 minutes. And I also don't feel like I need to prepare a lot because I just look at the profile. Does the person seem sympathetic to me? Can we vibe? Does the person seem to have a profound value system? And other things that person talks about is interesting to me.
Yeah.
So I look a couple of seconds at the profile and then I text the people. I look at the person, I look at the content, so I have a brief idea what they're talking about. And right before the podcast, I just took a look for 1 minute, and then that's pretty much it. So it's pretty interesting because I'm also a very skeptical thinker, spiritual thinker, deep thinker. That I mean, You could have said something completely different that, let's say, doesn't align with my worldview, that, let's say, my worldview about, let's say, elites, control, centralization is bullshit, and I'm completely crazy. Well, oddly enough, no.
But also the thing is, I'm not one to judge. Even if that was the case, I'm not one to judge you and say you're crazy. You have your beliefs for your reason why you have your beliefs. I'm not here to tell you otherwise. I don't think anybody on the earth should actually be telling other people like how to think or what to do.
But
All we
they
can
do.
do, we do, of course, but that's about control. That's ego. All we can do is go from our walk of life. That's it. And again, be that stone for the ripple effect and hope that we can inspire someone or inspire, people to kind of step up and start to ask some questions and start to think, well, is there more to this? And when I guarantee anybody that's listening to this will start to think, there has been times in my life where I've thought about someone and all of a sudden I've ran into them or they've called or, thought of something and all of a sudden that happened. It is the magic of the universe. It's the magic of what we're living in because we are so powerful and consciousness is everything. And when you do it in that state of remembering that you are the magician, that you have the magic within you, life can be beautiful.
Yeah, it's probably because all those frequencies are, I don't know if connected is the right word,
We're
but
all connected.
yeah,
We're
okay.
all
Okay.
connected.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can put it, and that's why people like you and me or other people who are vibing probably came together today. Because I also could have found like 10 million different profiles on Instagram
Sure.
with completely different personalities, but I found you. So yeah.
And you were meant to. You were meant to. And we were meant to have this conversation. Otherwise, it never would have happened.
Yeah, that can be. That's possible. Yeah.
I think
So,
it's that simple.
so I don't know if you want to talk about it, but you can let me know. So you were talking about it. You went to Egypt, to the pyramids.
Yeah. So I had actually opened a spiritual center a few years ago. And the whole point of it was at a time when they were locking people down and separating people. I was like, this is going to be terrible. We need to bring people back together again. People need to come back together again. So I ended up opening a spiritual center and I opened a space that people could reunite again and do meditations. And like my whole thing was we're going to counteract the vibration that they're putting out, which is fear and panic. We're going to counteract that. We're going to know that we can heal anything. We're going to know that we are the power and we're not going to get into fear vibration. So it really was born out of that. And then that just really grew and turned into, like I say, we have a network now, but also I was in Egypt last year and became friends with Mohammed Ibrahim, who wrote the book Ancient Egypt before, or the writings of Ancient Egypt before Egypt. It became a bestseller. He's on Gaia television. He's a world-renowned ancient Egyptologist. He's wonderful. And he works with Billy Carson and Greg Bard and a lot of people in
Billy
the spiritual.
Carson, yeah.
And he does, so they worked, and he's just wonderful. But him and his wife, beautiful people, and they have a tour company called Saba Tours. And Saba in hieroglyphics means Stargate. So I really bonded with them and we partnered up. And so my company facilitates tours with them. So we are like the American kind of sister company and we organize these sacred tours. And so we did one recently. It was my second time being with them. And we go to some very special places. We're doing another one actually next March. We're doing a mega one next March for 2 weeks with Mohammed and the whole tour company. But this September, we're doing one in Turkey. So we're going into Derinkuyu. We're going into all the underground cities. It's going to be unbelievable. We fly into Istanbul and we've got 2 weeks in Turkey, all sacred sites. So we're doing that this September. But the Egypt one, I was very called to Egypt last year. And I know that my soul I'd been pulled towards sacred lands, to higher intelligence, to higher technologies, and really got deep insight last year. And then obviously was very much drawn back again this year. And yes, we had a private tour inside the Pyramid of Giza, which we're not really allowed to post on social media. So I didn't, but we did some stuff in there. And it was very interesting because after coming back from that, about 2 weeks later, all of a sudden they all came out with, they had done this scan of beneath the grounds and they found the technology like the batteries, the pillars underneath the pyramids. And they came back and now said, and it's been on everything, that it is a power plant and it's generating some sort of energy. And I was like, I could have told you that a year ago, but that's okay. I have to be very careful with how much I kind of post on social media, but you can feel the energy in the pyramids. But there's many different sites we went to there. So now we're facilitating people who are drawn to sacred lands and really want to come and do like a deep dive to come on these journeys that we do. And if people are called to it, great. And if they're not, great. But more and more people we're seeing now are like, I just felt the call to come here. I just felt like my soul wanted to come home and I wanted to remember. And I feel like that's part of this beautiful, great awakening that's happening spiritually on this planet that you and I are both a part of.
Most likely, probably.
Yeah.
So you said, so when you are underneath the pyramids, around 100 meters beneath, not above, beneath the pyramids, so you say you feel like very positive frequency energy?
Oh, yes. I mean, I was in the King's Chamber, the Queen's Chamber. I mean, we were up inside it too, but we were also under it. The energy is unbelievable. Unbelievable. I mean, I was physically vibrating in there. And when I came out, physically vibrating. It's really interesting too. And I'm going to see if it's the same when I go to Turkey. In Egypt, all of the sacred sites that you go to, all of the temples, all of the pyramids, they have animal protectors there. They either have dogs or they have cats, and they protect structures. And they vet you. They check you out when you go there. And you just have to wait until they kind of sniff around you and check you out. And then they'll walk away and you're like given the permission to go in. And the pyramid has these unbelievable dogs, and they'll stand up when they see you coming and they'll bark. And then you stop and you kind of allow them to check out your energy. And it's as if they're giving you the okay. And they're the guardians of the temples. They're the guardians of the pyramids. And it's never cats and dogs. It's one or the other. And they man all of the sites, all of the sacred sites. They guard them. It's unbelievable. And they will bark their heads off at certain people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes, you tell him he can't come in this pyramid.
I can imagine that there are certain people who just travel there for the fame and out of wrong intentions.
Well, you know who Mr. Beast is?
Yes.
Mr. Beast went there. He was there like a week before me. And you're not allowed to go under the Sphinx. It's like a no-no. You can go to the Sphinx, but you can't go underneath it. But he could for $5 million. So he got to go under the Sphinx. And he did a whole video on it. But he was there like 5 days before I was there. So I was like, why can't we go over? And they were like, well, if you want to pay Egypt $5 million, you can go under the Sphinx.
Wow.
But he did. You're still getting the energy though when you're there. I mean, the energy of the Sphinx is crazy, insane. And it's funny because the first time I was there last year, when we were there, I had my hands on the Sphinx and I was like reading the energy of it. And all of a sudden my consciousness went underground and I went to 7 different levels underneath the Sphinx.
Okay.
I started to be aware of what was happening under those levels. And after I came back into my body, I was like, whoa. And I saw what we would relate to as like an underground base. I saw craft, like flying saucers under there. I saw technologies being built. And I saw different beings working under there. Crazy.
Are we talking about extraterrestrials here?
Yes, yes.
Crazy.
And afterwards, when I came back, I was like, whoa. And it wasn't until this year when we were on the tour and one of the tour guides said that Mr. Beast had gone there. And that's when I discovered he said, oh yeah, he went underground. And instantly I was like, I knew it. I knew all of this existed under there. But no one ever talks about underneath the Sphinx. And then he said, Mr. Beast, I'm sure they didn't take him to all of those levels. I'm pretty sure they took him to like where they wanted to take him. But
so he didn't.
Well, the thing is, when my consciousness was seeing this, I wasn't too sure if I was seeing what had been before, if I was going into what it was originally built for, or if I was seeing what was happening right now. I very much feel that I was seeing what had been there before.
So you're not sure if there were aliens in the moment you were standing.
I very much feel like I was seeing when it was active, when they were fully utilizing that area. But I feel like they have deactivated a lot of these sites deliberately. So I don't feel like that was happening when I was there this time. So I feel like I was being shown this is what was going on there. And this is what it was being used for when it was active, when the site was super active. Or, the humans came on and started being like, we're going to slice off the face and the this and the that, because they destroyed a lot of the Sphinx. They destroyed the face, and they've deactivated all of the sites in Egypt. I say they, meaning some group at the top, went in and they sliced things off most of the sacred temples. They've actually taken off like crystals from the walls. They've smashed off the top of the staff on like different ancient beings. Like they've deliberately deactivated all of these sites so that they won't work, sadly. But you can still feel the energy. And when you're all there together as a whole group, that energy rises.
What you are describing right now, is that kind of remote viewing, or do you perceive that as remote viewing, what you were doing there, or is that different?
Yeah. But yes, it is a form. It would be a form of remote viewing, which I was always able to do that before I even heard about the term remote viewing.
What happens in the moment you're receiving something invisible? What happens inside yourself? I mean, you already kind of described it, but maybe a little bit more into detail.
So when my eyes are closed, I also do this when I'm home in Scotland too. Like I'll put my hands on castle walls. And what happens is I instantly go back to things that happened on that time. So when I was at the Sphinx, I had my hands on the side, and all of a sudden I shot down, and it's as if I am standing on the level and I'm seeing what's happening. And then I go down to another level and I can see what's happening. And there was a form of, I guess the only way to say is like a lift, like an elevator lift. There was a thing that was moving between all of the floors underneath the Sphinx. And the lower down you got, the more higher beings were down there. And when I'm in Scotland and I put my hand on like castles, I can do it with trees too in certain areas. A couple of years ago when I was home, I had my hand on this ruin, an old ruin, and it was on these castle grounds. And instantly I was thrust back into that square, and I saw a woman being burned at the stake. And I could see it when my hands were on this castle ground. So it is a form of remote viewing, but it also can move into different times. So not necessarily present day, but I can go into other times.
Is a remote viewing essentially just about seeing invisible things that are present, or also across time shifts?
It's both.
Both,
It's
yeah.
So for instance, when the CIA were doing it, their psychic spies, their remote viewers, they would be in a room and they could shift their consciousness to the room that Gorbachev was sitting in, and they could see the paperwork that he was writing. And
They could also see the details?
Yeah, they could see the details. They could see the actual words. They could read the paperwork and then come back to their body and tell the CIA, this is what it says in the paperwork.
I don't remember that mountain, and I don't remember that dude's name, but he was a remote viewer.
Lynn Buchanan?
Sorry?
Lynn Buchanan? Was it Lynn Buchanan?
No.
Ingo Swann?
So it was a guy around 2 years ago. Okay. One of my friends, he's very open-minded. I mean, we're not in touch right now, but he told me about that he found reports on aliens. And since I'm open-minded, I was like, oh, yeah, let's take a look. And there was that one report about a guy who was doing remote viewing. And I think he was seeing, like, within the architecture of that mountain, that there were, like, let's say, a base where aliens and
Mount Shasta?
Sorry?
Mount Shasta?
I don't think it was Mount Shasta. But that guy, he was seeing, like, how aliens and humans were working together and repurposing, redesigning spacecrafts.
Yeah. Yeah,
but that guy was killed a couple of days after that, I think. And he was found dead in his hotel room. You know who I mean?
Don't.
Okay, it's fine.
I don't know who this is. Now I need to look up. I mean, humans and aliens have worked together for a long time. There are bases that are made just for that. In America, there's bases made just for that underground. And they're not going to talk about them. You'll hear about the obvious ones like Area 51 and things like that, but they're not going to tell you the actual ones that they're really doing this stuff at. But it's very well known at this point. A lot of people know about it at this point.
I can actually look it up where it was, because I don't remember. It would take too long for me to recall it. But if I ask ChatGPT, I might be lucky and get an answer.
For that, yeah. Yeah, but we have worked with them for a long time.
1 second.
I'll also look it up too and just see if I can.
Yes.
And he was a remote viewer?
Yes, definitely. I don't know when, in the 80s or something. It's Pat Price. Yeah, it was a Stargate project in the 70s. It was Mount Hayes in Alaska.
Interesting. Pat Price. Okay.
So ChatGPT says Price, a former police officer, became one of the most talented remote viewers in the Stargate program in the 1970s. He allegedly viewed several extraterrestrial bases on Earth, including one set to the inside Mount Hayes in Alaska. Described these alien spaces as being controlled by non-human entities that could influence human thoughts and actions. Not long after making these claims, Pat Price died unexpectedly in 1975, officially from a heart attack. However, due to mysterious circumstances and his sensitive work, some have speculated foul play, even suggesting intelligence agency involvement.
Wow. Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. I didn't really hear about him. Wow.
Yeah,
Now, though, I do know the name Pat Price, so I'm sure I did hear it in passing. But yes, yeah. I mean, I think there's tons of them, tons of those bases, and not just in America too.
what, like, how are people structured, or where do they get that gifts from to be able to remote view?
I would say training.
Training? Do you think
Training.
everyone can learn that, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Everybody can. Everyone has a pineal gland. Everyone has a third eye.
Yes.
Absolutely. I think through meditation, sitting in stillness, but really getting a meditation practice. I can't start my day without meditation. I can't. I have to do it every single day. And I do it before I go to bed at night too. I would say a meditation practice, but a lot of that is training. So it is moving your attention when you're in a state of meditation. It's quieting the mind, which is hard for so many people. That's why we have so many distractions coming at us, because the mind like overworks. And I will tell people, think of your thoughts like they're on a train outside of yourself. And so every time the train comes into the station, you say, come back in 10 minutes and allow it to go, because you don't have to believe everything you think. So when someone's in meditation, I have them come into the third eye, come into the pineal gland, and then start to move. The way to start it is start to move to places that you've been to before. So for instance, if you've been to grandma's house, or if you've been to New York City, or start moving first and train, because what you want to do is you want to start training the pineal gland for details. So start picking up details and have a pen and like a journal with your eyes closed and just write down anything that's coming into vision. And the more you do that, how I actually, it's not that I trained myself, but I guess I technically did. I've always had extrasensory abilities my whole life, so it wasn't that hard for me. But what I started doing was, in my journals, I would pick a date that hadn't happened yet. So I would go to like April 10th, 2026, and I would move my consciousness there, and I would start to write down what would come to me. And then I would flag these pages. And as the years went on, I would forget what I'd written, but I would go back and I would have a reminder on something, like clock what happens on this day. And anytime I went back to those journals, it was 100% correct. I was in the place that I saw myself be in, with the people I saw myself be in, the colors. Now one could say, well, I created that. Certainly, I certainly could have created that. But then I started to do it with things in the past, different timelines, like I could move to things that were happening at this time and see things, pick them up. So there's definitely something to it, but I think that's a great place to start if you want to start training.
So yeah, meditation, and so for me also, I also thought about doing meditation, but the thing is, my mind is like storming and rushing, and it's like, when we start to meditate, you're going to sit there and you want to move. So I don't even get into the, let's say, lotus position to meditate.
So I never cross my legs when meditating, because I feel like it's like the garden hose. You're jamming the flow, you're putting a knot in it, and you want the flow. So I always sit up when I do it, or I'll lie down on my back. And I always have my crown chakra, so this connected to source, my feet on the ground. I usually sit in a heightened chair like this one. But when I do it and I close my eyes, if you have a very overactive mind, you want to do something that you're focused on. So if you're doing breath, just focus on the breath. Or if you've got like a fan on, just focus on the hum of the fan. But you want to focus on something. If it's easier to start with guided meditation, you can do short guided meditations. Actually, on our network, the Higher Realm TV, we have little 10-minute ones to get people started. But if it's easier to hear someone and do a guided to start to train your mind, that's very good too. But if you want to do the silence, you have to know thoughts are going to come in. It's okay. You don't want to hit the thoughts away. Just put them on the train. Put them on the train. Okay, come back in 10 minutes. Take a big breath and just come back to this. Things will begin to form and you will start to move to places. You can allow yourself to go there, or you can do it deliberate. You can say, okay, I'm going to visualize, or I'm going to see, and whatever it is that you want to see. Like if there's something that you're like, I want to bring this into my life, you would come into the third eye and then you would put yourself in that place as if it's already done. So how would a day in the life of this look? How would it feel? Where am I? Who's there? And that's how you train the third eye. You train the pineal gland that way. So it starts to listen to you. And then you're moving your consciousness.
So it becomes more intuitive.
Yes, yes. But the
So
more you do that, the easier it comes. It takes a while though. It's training. It's training.
So you mentioned the pineal gland several times, and you also explained a little bit what it does, but just to give a more broad explanation and in regards to the importance of the pineal gland, what is it for? What are its jobs? Why is it so crucial?
It is your doorway. It is your portal, in my opinion, to everything that exists. It's your true sight. The human eyes, we have been trained to just see with the human eyes. But when we close our eyes and we bring the attention here, we can see so much more. When you go to sleep at night, your soul is not there because the soul doesn't get tired. The physical body gets tired. The soul is not waiting 8 hours. The soul does what we call astral traveling. So the soul will leave the body and go travel. But you're connected with a silver umbilical cord. It's still connected to the physical vessel. So the soul goes and travels and it receives all of this information. It's getting downloads. It's meeting with people on the other side. It's getting all of this knowledge. And then it comes back to the body for the body to awaken. And there's sometimes where a lot of people have still been outside of the body when the body started to wake up. And that's why you feel your hands can't move. You feel like you can't move because the soul hasn't fully come back in the body. And then when you come back, a lot of the information is jumbled because it's almost like too much for the human brain to take in. It's like rebooting your computer. It needs a download so it can upgrade. That's what we get when we go to bed at night. So we go to sleep, the computer goes off, the downloads come in, and then we're upgraded so we can run more optimum the next day. When you go to sleep at night, your pineal gland, this is your sight. So when you're traveling, all the dreams, it's coming in through this eye. So when people come back, they got the craziest dream, this happened and that, you're moving your consciousness. So now when you meditate, it's doing that consciously. Instead of being asleep, you're doing it in an awakened state, but in a meditative state.
So are you saying that consciousness is leaving the brain or the body while you are asleep?
No, this is going to be hard to explain. So bear with me. So where you are right now, there is a part of you that is still connected to the other side. And we call it your higher self. So there's a version of you on the other side. Think about it being connected here. Think of like, you talked about your shadow self, right? So think of yourself here and then your shadow here. But we're going to call this a light being, but this is your higher consciousness. And then there's you. When you go into meditation, what you're doing is you're shifting yourself into your higher self. So the consciousness, you're still running the body, but you're shifting into this place. So everything you're getting is coming from this place. That's what happens at nighttime. So your brain's still going. There's still brain function, but your essence, yes, your consciousness is almost split. It's moving into a higher state.
I see.
So when you meditate, that's what you're doing. Your eyes are closed and you're shifting your consciousness, but it's still in the body, but it's split between both now. And this is your doorway for vision, for visual. This is your doorway for the sight.
But what do you exactly mean by both? Like different parts of the consciousness?
Think of it like when you move your consciousness, you're not killing the body. The body's still alive, right? So yes, your consciousness is moving to here, but the body's still awake. It's still connected to the body. There's not like zero brain activity, the heart's not going. So there has to be some sort of consciousness still running the body. You've shifted the conscious state of yourself into another place. So when people do this, some people have no awareness of what's happening physically here anymore. Some people do. Some people can hear the cat behind them. Some people are aware of that, but your consciousness is seeing other stuff. You can have both.
Yes, I see.
There's a school in England that teaches this. There are actually children that are taught to read books blindfolded. They're reading through their third eye. They can read an entire book out loud with a blindfold on, word for word.
Kind of like remote viewing.
It is exactly that. It's exactly that. I mean, you can label anything you want, but it is moving your consciousness. That's what it is. And it's with training, you can train. I mean, there's hundreds of children that can do this perfectly, which means anybody can be trained. That's the power we came here with. But what of the powers that be done? They've tried to shut down our pineal gland. I mean, I hate to get, detailed about this, but when a certain thing was out in 2020 and 2021, they wanted to do swabs. And where were they shoving the swabs? Into your pineal gland, right?
You mean the anti-gene tests?
Yep. Where are they
Yeah,
putting the one
PCR.
place they're doing it? They're not swabbing your mouth. They're not swabbing just your nasal. They're shoving it up into your pineal gland, right into here, into your third eye.
Yeah, I
Why
mean
would you do
up
that?
the nose. Yeah.
So when you start to think like, why are they always attacking our pineal gland? Why are they always attacking our third eye? Like when they were doing the temperature check here in America, they would fire it at your third eye. Instead of doing it like on your wrist or other places they could do it, it's a constant attack to shut down people's power, to shut down your third eye, to shut down your doorway, your portal.
I see, to pretty much shut down your intuition and your power.
They call it calcifying, like calcifying the pineal gland. So like putting muck up there, like muck, so that you would have to try and break through it, you know?
Yeah, also some people talked about fluoride in the tap water, and that this calcifies your pineal gland.
Absolutely. It's been a constant attack on that since we came into these bodies, because this is your doorway. It's your sight.
Okay, so I mean, we've been recording now for almost 2 hours. Maybe just to wrap it up,
Yes.
final message you want to give to the audience for their lives, like message from your heart, advice you would give everyone to navigate through their life and by being able to embrace and achieve their potential as great as possible.
My final message would be, it's okay where you're at. It's okay to be where you are. And it's okay not to feel okay. But because everything is always moving, everything you are feeling is temporary. You're going to move through all of it. You're going to get through all of it. We have a choice. Every day we wake up, we get to choose. You can choose love or you can choose fear. It's the same coin. It's just two different sides. If you choose a state of love and constantly try and live from that place, your life will be blessed. Doesn't mean it'll be without challenges, because that's part of taking a body, but you will be blessed. If you can forgive quickly, if you can have gratitude for all, and if you can know that you are a divine expression of source energy, an infinite expression of all that is, you can remember your power, you can remember who you are, and you can remember that you are part of the whole. You are not separate from anybody. You are perfect. You are on purpose. You are divine, and you are and will always be love.